Vishal, you have not made me admin for this session. Okay, I can't do that. Or okay, I'll figure out. Okay. Hmm, can you don't do that now?
Yeah, I think I'm audible. So meantime, you guys figure out the presenting option. I'll just give an intro about me. So I'm Bodhish. I'm a full stack developer working for an people first. Uh, it's an open source learning management system based out of Bangalore. And uh, last year we started this initiative called as CoronaSafe, and it's more of a disaster management tool that is built
You are now
for
muted.
pandemic management. And to give you a background, we working this. We started working on this on last March, and close to 60 weeks we spent on like building it open source voluntarily. And just, yeah, what else is? I'll just share my screen. Uh, I would like to do mostly tell you a story about how Corona started and how it's going. So when the pandemic began, it is super unclear what's going to happen. So within every crisis, there is an opportunity uh, that we build on. So we took that opportunity and thought what we could do. I'll mostly be covering the three acts that we've done. One is figuring out what's noise, signal versus noise, digital transformation, and a small note on what is called as if engineering solution. On signal versus noise, when we started uh, when we started this, we were super clear about that. I've never seen a pandemic. So I've seen a pandemic and no one had any clarity on what's happening or where this was going. So internet was flooded with information and it is super. So we started tracking that from December. So our team and peer friends that I've shared, like we all were discussing like what's going to happen. Should we do something about it, or will it be just like Nipah that will just Nipah the thing that came up in Kerala, but that is solved in like a month or so. So we were thinking, expecting that this will go out like that. So we may not want to act. We waited for some time, and by March 8th, we thought, okay, anyways, this is going high. Let's take it online and like start working on building out some localized information. So we purchased a domain, and then so we were doing this for multiple other disasters. For example, for Kerala floods, we created after floods, Kerala rescue, and collaborated with multiple other initiatives. So initially, CoronaSafe was just a platform that will load the content that is available in WHO into local languages. So we started curating the content in the internet and vetting it with experts and translating it into different local languages. Once this effort started by eight, and in like 4 days we were able to translate it to 8 local languages in India, and the reach started going up. At that point, we met a few people that were super critical in the journey. So that's how CoronaSafe began. Early March, we talked to Dr. Ramohan, is a doctor and a mathematician, uh, who created a spread plot and tried to compute what will happen if 70% of the people in Kerala are infected. And this information was shared to the CMO's office. And the CMO's office approved a pilot team to uh, figure out and build a system that can be used across the banks to manage the pandemic. So it was mostly on the types of building out systemic capabilities to triage, report, trace, isolate, and monitor different facilities and capacities. that is involved in the healthcare assets. The active that we did was the digital transformation. So you'll be aware that most of the systems that are available in the country runs on pen and paper. So a lot of private hospitals has like solid good uh, patient management system PMSs that are powering them, but none of it is interconnected. Most of the government systems, government hospitals has bits and pieces of a PMS or a patient management system and reporting system. It's not completely built up. There are like isolated parts that are available in e-health and others, and it's not interconnected, and there is no central reporting that's available. So we thought like the first thing we're going to do is like digitally transform the entire infrastructure. When we started, we were asked to pilot it in Ernakulam, and we were joined with a team of people from WHO, consultants in Kerala, National Health Mission, IMA, and the district health authorities. And this is the district response control room in Ernakulam 1 year back. And at that point in time, this is the office next to collector, where the decisions are taken on what happens when a disaster strikes. And the entire infrastructure over here was running on paper, and the most complex tool that we're using is Google. Nothing else was there. And we started building it from scratch. Initially, we figured out telemedicine was one of the critical part where that we stopped it, and we created a unit, and that it's like a simple Rails app that helped them log the calls and follow up on calls. Simple call management software that reminds people when to do the next call. If a patient has one specialist appointment requirement, connect with other people, and simple integrations. And IMA set up a telemedicine unit with 40 people. That's like a referral system, and it started working in Kerala. And then we discussed with the experts in WHO, the collector, the people in state, and figured out we wanted to build a full-fledged capacity management tool that can monitor the capacity, identify where the resources are, shift patients, triage patients, create queues for bed allocation, and multiple other bands to it. So discussions were done. We started writing the tools, and we ended up creating a complete unit. For example, this is a digital dashboards. These were the dashboards we created. If you can see, like you can see Metabase across the board. So when we started out, we created a system to collect data and use Metabase to augment the data into different dashboards and shown it to the district administration and people for making decisions. And they realized the power when they started seeing the data centrally, and they identified how the tools could be used to efficiently manage the entire system. In the first 30 days, there were a lot of people, and we created a lot of apps, including systems to manage capacity, patient management, log patient journey, log people coming in from airport, food delivery app, facility management systems, telemedicine, log all tracks, option to book stay in Kerala for quarantine, Kerala dashboards, an Uber system for ambulance where you can deploy ambulances across the state, and a lot of automated products. The critical time that we realized is that we were just software engineers, a group of volunteers from across the country, and there were people from abroad also. So the key challenge was that the entire infrastructure, health infrastructure, was running on pen and paper and WhatsApp. So they were not super fond or like super used to softwares. And the key problem that we identified is that buttons with shadows, the users were not able to identify those as buttons. So they were thinking that's some text that's written. So we had to completely revamp our UI and say, like, click here for viewing the patient. So we had to make it more simple for the users to get adapted to it. And we started calling it called as the Matai test. So he's Dr. Matthews, who's like the brain who powered the requirements that was fed to these decisions to build this entire system. So Dr. Matthews is a district program DPM, district program manager for the National Health Mission in Kochi. So whatever we built, we used to run it through Dr. Matthews, and we call him Matai Shatan, and Matai Shatan used to test. So how he used the phone is like he will like tap the phone and feel like he's feeling his phone. So whatever he was able to use, the people in the field was able to use. So all the softwares that we deployed were tested through Dr. Matthews, and the feedbacks were taken. And we continuously evolved and improved the software over time. Once that was done, around April 22nd, we did a mock drill. We wanted to test how the systems will work efficiently. For example, we had a patient management system, we had a capacity system, we had an ambulance system that takes care of ambulance running. Since the case was not super high, we did a mock drill on April 22nd, involved shifting 6 patients across the district. And it was a very intensive mock drill, and everything was monitored by teams of doctors, administration, state staff, and the whole process of shifting, triaging, and monitoring and using a digital system was mock drilled on April. And there were people as observers watching each and every move that these, including the medical actions that were taken, were monitored and feedbacks were given. Once the mock drill was done, the suggestions were fixed. We gave a demo to we presented the whole system to the State Crisis Management Committee in the state. So it's chaired by 6 secretaries of the state and 2 ministers. And the chief secretary issued an order that says CoronaSafe network could be used for any disaster in Kerala. And that's how we got the official buy-in by July to use it fully fledged in the state. And Chief Minister, 2 ministers, and 6 secretaries signed on this order. And this is one of the landmark GO that says open source tools could be used for disaster management. Let it be pandemic or any other disaster that comes to Kerala. The key thing here is that whatever disaster comes in, the state machinery and the state infrastructure is the same. That's not going to change. Only the mode of operation and the people involved are going to change. The hospitals that you have, the capacity that you have, that'll be constant. Let it be an earthquake or a flood or a pandemic. You'll have to manage with the fixed infrastructure that you have. And the CoronaSafe was live, and we started improving it day by day. So in July, we created the first line. June, the biggest first line treatment center in Adelaide. We supported them with a full patient management software. So CARE is what we call the software, and it can be used for managing makeshift hospitals and hospitals. So this was one of the biggest first line treatment centers in the state, which was set up in like a week, which doesn't have anything to manage. So everything, if the system was not there, everything that should be all the reporting should have been done with pen and paper or Google Sheets. So the system completely replaced it. It helped them with patient management, inventory management, shifting, testing, all those things. And by the time the state district was super happy about the software, and they started adding all the private hospitals that is involved. So now in Kerala, in Ernakulam, all the private and the government systems use one single system. So there are like people put in each of these hospitals to buy those hospitals itself to update the data to CARE. So all the data is reported to a single place and is directly fetched from the ground. So this improves the reporting in a very extended level. And I think you've seen the first image. This was the emergency control room 1 year back, and this is the current control room that is running the entire pandemic management operations. So all the systems that you see here are open source, and everything runs on the CARE systems. So if you can see on the left, you can see a capacity map. On the center, you can see the capacity analyzation plots, and the right, you can see the oxygen usage and percentages. So you can identify where the capacity is, what's happening, and what's the numbers that you're available, and what's your inventory, how it's going, what's the burn rate, uh, what is the time to empty, and all the details that are specific for implementation. We also have a shifting team and triaging team that sits in the next room that will monitor the whole operations in the district. And if you're talking about the impact till now, since we launched, we've served close to 1.8, 1,81,249 patients. And there are close to 3,000 patients getting added every single day. And we also helped serve close to 2 lakhs telemedicine calls in just in Ernakulam. And we are still count. The Act 3 that we did is the CoronaSafe Engineering Fellowship. So what we realized is that before this pandemic, 3 years back, we all joined together to build softwares for the Kerala floods. Most of us were students at that point in time, and everyone who like the people who driven that campaign was completely by students. So what we realized is that empowering students to build softwares was one of the key things. We joined with AICT and other companies to raise a cadre of engineers across the country who can support in open source tool building. So we ran an application campaign. We got 50K applicants. We selected the top 24, trained them for 3 months on different stacks, and they were volunteering with us for the last 3 months for building the rest of the tool. So when the second wave hit, we had limited resources. Next thing we did was like we created a directory for the complete life tools for get oxygen, medicine, hospitals, ambulance, helpline, and we called it life resources. This is partnered with SWAST, but the 8 out of 10 top 10 contributors are students we trained from the CoronaSafe Engineering Fellowship. And these are our future plans. It's a group effort. There are a lot of people. We want students to be the forefront who can drive the entire campaign. We want to raise another like cadre of students who can continue the legacy softwares and like build and improve multiple softwares. We ideally want the governments don't. So government should not pay for open source software. They should be able to use open source software and run their own open source software instances for free. The community around the state could be used to build this and maintain this. And in Kerala, there are a lot of organizations, there are a lot of open source community, and it is quite simple to build this. And maintaining it was also not an issue. We also want to scale this knowledge to other students and community across the country. And this is my contact. You can reach out to me at Bodhish.in or you can join our community Slack if you guys are interested to contribute. You can access the link in Slack or CoronaSafe. I'm just stopping my presentation and I'll just quickly jump in and show our dashboards to have a better idea. So these are the dashboards that we use for the capacity. If you just look at all government, filter by and see what's the capacity in just in the government, the whole state could be filtered with that. You can also see when was a hospital last updated, what's the oxygen capacity, discharge summary, like patients live discharged, ventilators in use specific to COVID and their utilization. The plots where you can see where are your capacity hospitals, where is your ICU, where's your oxygen beds. Click on it and just see the details, how many are left, and all the other details. And if you look at the oxygen, also you can see the district summary for liquid oxygen and each type of cylinders, their current burn rate and their time to empty. This is the average burn rate that computed by calculating the burn rates from each and every hospital. Each hospital has their own burn rate, their current capacity, their time to empty, and these details could be tracked. Look at the oxygen also. Also, all the data can be scoped by the LSD device, so you can see where it's getting high, where it's getting low, what's the overall case, and yeah, and it's everything open source, and all the code for all the softwares that we use could be found in github.com/CoronaSafe. Major projects are KRFE, Life, and Dashboard. And that's mostly it. I'll be happy to take in questions if you have, or I can push it towards.
You are now unmuted.
Yeah.
So this is Anand here. So I want to ask you, like, so if you had to do it all over again, what were things you would do differently?
Uh, that's a tricky question, but yeah. So
You are now
we
muted.
would definitely go on a minimal approach. So there are multiple tools and multiple complex softwares that are complex parts that are built into each one of it. For example, inside care systems, there is a complete full-fledged patient management system, and there's also telemedicine software that's separate there, which has a similar flow. If you're going to build it from scratch again, we would unify everything together and build one single monolith that consumes and shares code between each other, than like separating it out as multiple pieces. And mostly care is a huge monolith, but there are associated services that were created parallelly at the same time, which were evolved. For example, telemedicine was a complete software outside, but later we merged it inside care. So there are like multiple other parts like this. And also we had another completely live tracking system for ambulances, oxygen capacities and stuff. We called it logistics, and it was separated out. But there was no tight integration with the current system. Technically, if you're gonna start again, we would build it in a simple way and mostly strip out a lot of features that are not critically.
There is a question from YouTube live stream. I want to read it out. Okay. Uh, how was it in the initial days? How long did it take for you the original project to gain momentum?
I missed you.
How was it in the initial days? How long did it take for the original project to gain momentum? This is asked by Approve.
Okay. So initial days was the momentum was super high. For example, most of the tech communities, when you are starting something, they'll like band together immediately, and there will be a lot of action. There will be a lot of people coming in, creating pull requests, fixing issues for you. But it's like a wave, just like Corona. The wave will stay only for some time, and it will hit the peak. Once the peak is hit, and the momentum just starts reducing, there will be only few core maintainers that will stick with you to run it throughout. For example, when we started, we have like close to 55 contributors working in KR front end and KR backend, and in the meantime, while there was no search, we were completely building the systems with like four of us volunteering in it part time. So initially, it's all. I think I've seen almost all of my other projects that I've done open source and to this community driven. There'll be a wave initially. The wave will drop, and the wave may not come back. But in our case, the wave started slowly picking up when the second COVID wave came in.
Was
You are now
Sharon is asking, can I make him a contributor?
Yes, you can. All you have to do is just go pick your stack. We have like we
You are now
working
muted.
with multiple languages. So work on a project that you are interested in, because we have a lot of tools. So this gives you summary what we do. We do real time analytics. moving asset management, capacity utilization plotting, facility management, triaging and shifting monitoring, oxygen monitoring, and a few of the public dashboards and other supporting tools, for example, telemedicine, stay, curfew pass management, and the lockdown started again. These tools are again deployed. So monitor trucks, a lot of other tools that we create. So you can work with us on our main projects or contribute to any other project that we run. And the posters could be found here. And Slack.CoronaSafe is where our community is there. We have close to 55,000 people, but close to 40, 50 people active. We'll be happy to help you if you can join the community and or pick up an issue from any of the project that's there.
You are now unmuted.
And yeah, I also saw a question. Beginners contribute to React. For projects, beginners can contribute, but dashboards and analytics, I'm not sure if the beginners would be a lot of help. But yeah, they would definitely look at fixing issues. There are a lot of cases where you have minor issues in almost all React projects. So definitely, freshers can also.
You are now unmuted.
So the basic thing
You are
would
now
be
muted.
try to set up the repo, because most of the repositories will have instructions and documentation on how you can like set up the local repository and what are the stuff that is required. So the first and the basic thing would be try to set up this repository on your local machine and try playing around with it and figure out if you're able to correlate with issues that are mentioned. So like most of the issues will be like specific to some parts of the software that you may not have any clue where it is about. If you just go and read the issues, like you won't understand anything. But if you have a hang of using the software and just like try playing around with it, you can definitely understand issues better and figure out how to contribute.
You are now unmuted.
So just adding one bit. So we have a
You are
knowledge
now
base. The details of like most of the tools and documentations are like created as like a small courses over here. If you guys are interested, you can also take it.
You are now unmuted.
Thank you.
Just a minute. Just a minute.
You are now muted.
So, I'm just trying to share my screen. Just give me a minute. Yeah. So I would like to kind of show a preview of what we're working on at FOSS Meetup. We're trying to build a learning platform. It's still a lot of things are still in flux, but I thought it's a good time to kind of share it with the community. So it's a learning platform to teach coding courses, and especially programming. We're starting with teaching programming to absolute beginners, and the idea is that this can actually support other kind of courses as well. So the idea is, if you look at online courses, a lot of times, many of the online courses, what happens is most of the courses are designed once, and there are many people who attend the course. Okay, so people, what happens is they get stuck somewhere and then drop. So the attrition rate is very high in many of these online courses. What we're trying to do is we're trying to bring the human element back into the online courses. Okay, so this is we're starting with one course called the J of Programming. The way it works is people learn programming by actually drawing things, by making computer draw different shapes. Okay, so so it's going to have, this is a broad course outline. They'll start with understanding what is programming all about and do some exercises. They'll start drawing simple shapes, understanding how the canvas and all these things works, and then they'll start understanding how to use variables, functions. So this is kind of kept in mind for completely absolute beginners. So a lot of things that we kind of take it granted. For example, I still remember, like, when I was learning programming, the thing I saw, like, I equal I plus 1, I said, like, this is not possible, right? I cannot do I plus 1, right? I mean, because with the background in mathematics in school, I equal I plus 1 looked like really weird. I'm sure, like, many of us have different those kind of incidences as when we're learning programming. So this is kind of kept in mind, like, people are completely new to programming, and we don't assume anything about them knowing something of programming, and start gradually from what they already know, by actually drawing shapes. Okay, so this also has a way to kind of people to draw and come to sketches. So what you do is these are some of the sketches drawn by different people. For example, let's say if I look at this sketch by Gayatri. So this is a written Python program. You draw a circle, and a drawing circle at different. So this actually draws circle in I think all the 4 corners. Okay, so if you just do one, it will draw. You run it. I'm not sure why this is not working right now. Yeah, let me try some other sketch. Let's try this one. Yeah, so the draws a circle, and people can learn to kind of write small programs to draw different shapes on the screen. So we start with drawing very simple shapes. One circle, maybe a donut. Okay, like maybe we can actually make this a circle, a small circle, a big circle. Right now, you can use variables to kind of define that and change that, and then write a function to draw a donut, and then so it kind of goes on adding one idea at a time in programming. So students would have fun kind of creating these interesting shapes, and there'll be many challenges for them to kind of try them out, and eventually by the end of the course they'll actually understand the fundamental ideas of programming, how to work comfortably with loops, if conditions, etc. So this course also kind of goes into a bit of ideas like randomness, etc. They will try to kind of do a bit of generative art by writing programs that will, whenever you run it, actually produce a completely new shape because there's some randomness involved. So this is something that we're starting to starting to work with small groups to kind of test this, how it works. So we're going to work with an organization called Navagurukul that works with students from marginalized communities, and will make them learn programming to kind of get into entry-level programming jobs. So we're going to start with them, and also trying to partner with Tinker Hub to see if you can actually work with students of Tinker Hub. So the way it works is there will be an instructor who creates a course, but people can actually apply to become mentor, and there will be multiple batches, and students can decide to join whichever batch that's compatible with. So there could be batch on a weekend or on the weekdays, etc. So students can decide which batch they want to do. So the idea is to kind of reduce the barrier for someone to kind of offer a course like this. So the course, all the content and exercises have already predefined in the platform. Anyone can actually become a mentor and plan to offer that course. For example, if someone want to offer a course, introduction to programming course to students, to kids in their apartment complex, for example, they can actually become a mentor and then actually offer it on this platform. Or if senior students of college want to offer introduction to programming course to their juniors who are joining fresh in the college, they can actually, some of them can become mentors and offer the course there. So the idea is to kind of make it easy for someone to kind of learn programming. That way, it can scale well and reach to more people. So, yeah, happy to take any questions if you have.
You are now unmuted.
Yeah, so one thing we kind of forgot to mention is like really looking for collaborators in 3 areas. Okay, so what you see here, the environment where you can actually draw sketches and inside Python, right? So there's a we've written system called live code.
You are now muted.
Let's share the link as well. Okay. So live code is a environment where it allows you to run Python from the browser, and we use that extensively in mod school. So looking for people to help us contribute to the live code and mod school. So for example, so this is an very flexible system to run any Python code. So it's actually running in the browser, running in the server and giving the output back to the server. We extended that to draw something on the screen. So the Python code runs on the server, sends a command to the front end to do some action, and then there's a small adapter in the front end that sits and draws something like that. So we're trying to extend the same thing to music, for example. You can't hear it because Big Blue Button doesn't share audio, but you can actually click that and actually play. It actually plays audio different tones. So you can actually try to introduce program to someone using music. In fact, I'm working with someone, a musician and programmer, to kind of create a course to see if you can actually have a course that actually combines music and programming together and actually have a fun way to learn programming through music. So we're looking for more people to kind of come with new ideas to try different courses, or take some of the courses that they're in the platform and teach in the people that they care about, and also to contribute code and actually help develop this platform. I've shared links to both of them in the screen. Please follow it, and then you can always reach out to me if you have any questions.
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, so I actually typed this out as well. So so far, and you partially answered my question by showing me the music part as well, which is very cool. So do you guys have some other ideas as well apart from drawing and music? And those are pretty broad spaces already. I'm just curious to see what else you guys might have thought.
Okay, so so one is like teaching programming, right? Okay, so but if you look at online education, right? So one thing that seems to be missing is most of the online courses on platforms take away the teacher from completely from the loop. Okay, right? We try to deliver directly to the student. But if you look at the actual how schools function, every time the teacher has to actually go and teach. Okay, so now look at thinking like, is there a middle path, right? I mean, can you kind of, instead of taking teacher away, can you kind of empower the teacher to kind of do something better? Okay, right? So we're trying to do this in the space of programming right now because that's something that's close to us and we can understand the nuances of that. Okay, but imagine the same thing can actually be applied to, let's say, learning a language. For example, let's say you want to teach someone to learn English or Kannada, for example. Okay, now the same kind of ideas can be applied there. Now, if you look at how a language is typically taught in school, it's quite boring. Okay, but there are a lot of different ways you can actually do because there's a new medium. So you can actually, for example, have someone listen to a song or a poem, right? As part of the course, okay, and ask some questions. They'll fill it, type in there, okay, or ask them to show a piece of text on the screen, ask them to read it out, and that system will record and send it, then store it, and then the teacher or the mentor can actually see that and then give feedback, right? I mean, so a lot of different things that can be extended the same platform. So the idea is, can we kind of create a platform which allows people to work with small group of students while most of the work is being done by someone designing the course, making sure like what should be assignments, etc. At the same time, the mentor would actually have enough freedom to kind of tweak the course at their needs. Okay, so we're at a very early stage right now. We're starting with the programming course, but I was in fact speaking with a friend of mine who runs a school. I told him like this is the kind of stuff we're trying to do, and he was really quite excited, saying that this is really very valuable because if you look at most of the learning platforms out there right now, they just can upload a video or a file, but you really can't have an interactive session. And a lot of learning can actually be interactive, like the example I gave for learning a language, right? So I see there's quite a lot of potential. So we want to kind of start trying out, fine tune wherever things are not there, and then kind of slowly expand to different areas, and then see what can be done. I mean, so if you look at these days, right? I mean, there are so many startups, companies, kind of trying to kind of make money on education. Not that it's bad, but what I feel is there is a community-driven alternative missing that space, and we're trying to see if we can actually create a community-driven alternative to all these things out there. At the same time, delivering much better quality than what's in the market.
Yeah, thanks for the answer. That was very thorough. And yeah, I'm understanding that this is much bigger than just like programming. And I'm like, I completely agree because there right now, if you pick up a course on like Code Academy, you just go through a on-rails experience, and you're right, there is no mentor, and a huge part of like just being in a classroom is that interactive kind of like feedback loop that you get with a real person. So I think this is I think it's a great middle ground of having a structure set up for somebody already, and they can still then support the students. I think this is pretty good. Yeah.
Any other questions?
You are now unmuted.
Yeah. Not sure if it's yeah. So I think let's continue with the open session, right? I mean, so what we usually do is like ask everyone what's interesting stuff they're working on. Okay, so I'll start with myself. This is what I'm working on. One school. I'm quite excited about it. So looking forward to see more people joining hands and trying to contribute. Yeah, who want to say what they're working on? this. Yeah. So you can either people on YouTube can type it out if you want to say something about the stuff that you're working on. Yeah. Yes, you can unmute and speak. Okay. That's perfectly all right. Okay. So let's have a informal conversation. So we usually kind of have some time to kind of have informal conversation about everything under the sun. So I know it's been quite tough for many of us because of COVID, etc. But let's see if any of you are still managing time to do anything interesting. Yeah, anyone want to speak? Yumi, Devgat, Nitin, Rohan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, please go.
Cool. So I think one thing that some of us are trying to do is see if we can. So a lot of people are sort of struggling with finding vaccination centers, not just the whole slots part, which is a whole different mess, but sometimes just knowing where to go is a problem. And some of us are trying to see if we can crowdsource this information, because a lot of folks are able to find vaccination centers, but others are struggling, and the information may not be there on Google, or you may not be able to find it immediately. But even if one person or two people who actually manage to go to a center are able to just post an update like, yeah, hey, I reached this location, this is what the picture looks like, this is what the location is on Google Maps, or this is the lat long, that could make life easier for all the next set of people who are trying to go. That's something that some of us are trying to work on right now. And again, I think we're also seeing, that's the reason why I asked this question, because a couple of folks joined and some progress happened. Now it's sort of like that dip in that wave is sort of coming. So I realize open source is a lot also about managing motivation and keeping people together as much as it is about tech.
Great. It's a wonderful initiative. In fact, last night I was kind of looking at. My parents got first dose of vaccine, and that was Covaxin, and that's not available anywhere in Bangalore. So I was trying to look at Ramnagar district. Don't know where that thing is actually. I manually actually looked at each name, added that place to Google Map, the village name, not the exact location of that. Okay, and then kind of sorted through like what's the nearest location for me, and see if we can actually go there on Sunday. So it's really, I think, quite useful project. Okay. But one thing that I want to ask is, how would someone crowdsource giving information to you? Okay.
So see, through CoWIN, we're able to get the list of locations,
Yeah.
right? So I think getting that one large list, that's a solved thing.
Yeah.
The next step becomes sort of like getting, it's sort of like a distribution problem, saying like, how do you reach as many people as possible who have managed to get slots or who are going to these various locations. So here I think a lot of these Telegram channels are running. So we're trying to just send out a second message on these channels saying like, if you've managed to get a slot, please just help fill out this Google form with just some basic info. And can we then just sort of feed that back and make it easier? And then I think the next step is, how do you make that, like just submitting that information easier? It's a problem of, you want to decentralize as much as possible so that as many people going to each vaccination center can provide info, but then having that visible easily so that it's not like a series of tweets which are hidden across the place, but like maybe on one place where you just come and look at it saying like, okay, what is the information that you have? So decentralize and centralize both.
So things like filling Google Form is actually hard, right? Okay. But why can't you just ask people to tweet in a specific format? Okay. The code number of some number of that thing followed by a picture of that location. Okay. And tag it on the Google Map, right? People have phone, so people doing it on Twitter, right? They can actually tag the location and take a picture and save.
That's brilliant. Yeah, because that solves a lot of issues. Everyone just, but okay, I get what you're saying. Whoever has access to Twitter can at least power that first wave. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I mean, see, I think that's what makes it easy, right? I mean, so one of the things is like you reduce the barrier for someone to kind of contribute. Many of you want kind of private source. I think that's important. Okay. Now, I wouldn't really be willing to kind of go fill a Google form, copy photo from my phone to a laptop or something. Right? There's multiple steps involved. Unfortunately, technology is so hard. Right? Copying some photo from a phone to laptop is not simple.
Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, right? But if you can make it like you can actually go to Twitter and click and actually it will take the photo directly from Twitter app, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and you can also put in location, right?
Yeah, and the other thing you can do is you can basically maybe do the same thing for a Telegram and WhatsApp bot. Okay, you can actually write a message to WhatsApp bot with the same kind of stuff. People who are not on Twitter can do WhatsApp bot or Twitter bot. Okay, so sorry, a Telegram bot, etc. Okay, that may be. I mean, give multiple options for people to do it, and then also different example, make it discoverable on Twitter and other places so that people get to know easy. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a very interesting project. I mean, if you can actually reach out to, I think one of the things about these kind of things is like you have to reach a critical mass before it becomes useful.
Yeah.
Right?
So the other thing which we sort of also realized is, so we've been talking to a lot of folks. We reached out, and what we realized is the Coven platform is like there's like a district in charge for every one of the 700 plus districts in the country, and their responsibility is to update the information, which is why you might see like if in Bangalore, for instance, you'll see a Bangalore Apollo something 45 plus 18 plus. That's literally how each district is following a naming convention, and there's no standardization across, which is why it's a little messy, which is why a direct Google search can't work.
Yeah.
And but what we're seeing is this information is scattered all over. Like for instance, someone in Rajasthan was trying to reach a particular vaccination center. They couldn't find it anywhere on Google Maps. Going through the Rajasthan health government websites, we found a PDF which had the names of all these locations and their phone numbers. And then through the phone numbers, we were able to see, okay, what is called a government hospital on Google Maps is the community health center. So there are a lot of these things where even just having volunteers, so that's another thing we're doing where we've gotten a couple of folks on board. We're just trying to search the web, find information, and maybe make a call and try and verify some amount of information. So that's also a very quick and dirty way of getting some of this going.
I just wanted to chime in.
Yeah.
So this is actually great. And the thing is, I'm seeing a lot of solved problems on another side of this. So Bodhish was talking about CoronaSafe, and one of the things that did this whole Slack channel. I don't know if you've heard of it, but I would highly recommend you join it because there's a few projects, not for the same objective, but similar mediums where data is trying to be, people are trying to pull data from Twitter. People are trying to verify data. For example, the CoronaSafe Live platform, which is basically aggregating all the resources like oxygen and now even food and a bunch of stuff. They actually have a whole verification process in place to actually do all this. So, and I think Bodhi's already shared the link. I can share it again. But if you could just drop there and then just ask a few people, you'll find a lot of people would be willing to help. You could see some of the processes that they are going through. And yeah, so yeah, there you go, Bodhish. I wasn't sure you were here, Bodhish. And yeah, I think there's a lot of, in fact, there's a WhatsApp bot that essentially, if you ask for, say, oxygen, it gives you a single contact, and then it also asks you for feedback, right? And they're currently working on a new API which also allows users to, like, say, upvote or downvote a particular entry that's there, which basically says, hey, this actually worked for me, or hey, this did not work for me. They don't have oxygen anymore. So, like, yeah, you're not solving the same thing, but the medium of it, I'm seeing a lot of overlap there. Where
I think it's just like the end item is changing. Instead of like oxygen, it's becoming a vaccination center, but otherwise the medium seems quite similar.
And related to motivation, man, I feel it. Like it's bad. Like it's hard to get anything done. And I think one of the things that kind of helped me work on a few things is just that having people around me who are working on other things as well. So like yeah, that Slack channel is quite nice. A lot of people working on a lot of incredible stuff. And yeah, we'll start with that. Oh, and please share your project link here itself so we can have a look. You know, just
Yeah. We're currently on Discord. I'll just put the link. Happy to even take any help or anything that could make our life easier as well. So
I'm guessing it's yeah. Share the GitHub repo as well. It's
yeah. Give me a bit.
awesome.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Even I think just the sheer idea of just using Twitter with a particular handle or some hashtag makes it much
Yeah.
better.
They're doing
Just
that
to add,
Sorry, Bodhish.
yeah. So yeah, what we're doing is we are fetching the hash verified tags from the Twitter. So there is a Twitter Stream API that you can use. And
Yeah.
So that kinds of work, and like we just feed the data to a verification portal, and like people started verifying the leads. Once the leads are verified, it comes back to the same base. So we try to create a decentralized database. For example, if I am someone from Ernakulam, I'm willing to contribute just for vaccine. I can maintain my own list and verifications. Our system will automatically fetch from the data source and sync it in the regular interval. If there are others, it will automatically report this to the user. We try to create a decentralized crowdsourcing platform.
Yeah, that's exactly what's sort of the need of the hour. So I think I joined your Slack. I'll just go through GitHub as well, and maybe then could I just DM and just figure out if I have any other questions?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Thanks.
You are now unmuted.
Yeah. So integrated. Yeah. So integrating in any other state is not a technological problem. It's like an operational problem. So there should be like strong backing from our government to get this implemented in any state/district. Because what we have created is just tools. We are not running it. We are not operating it. We have just created an instance for the National Health Mission in Ernakulam, and they are the owners of it. They pay the bills. They own the database. They own the servers. They run the tools. They do the training, and they operate it. So like the volunteers are stopped just at the staging point, a staging server. They don't have access to the production server. The data isolation is completely there, and we need like stronger people in the government who will be happy to. This is not a simple change. Like change making is hard. So, like the question is if they want to do it or not. We had a lot of people coming in with interest last year also. This year, after the war room video that went viral, like we're getting a lot of calls from everywhere. But what we've done is we've created a documentation on how you can do this, how you can deploy it, and everything is public. And we're just sending it out. We are also helping them. Like if you want, we can support you with deployment, training, and documentation. But you guys should be responsible for running it and owning the data.
You are now unmuted.
It's not like
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's more like a operational challenge because any state that want to do this will have to issue a government order that says this could be used. So without that, technically, no other state could use it. We are also working with the central government projects to see if they want to do anything. Like we are not pushing this out. If there is interest, we are willing to help anyone deploy.
That's an interesting point, right? So it's actually the government machinery that's actually at work, and then this is a tool that's kind of helping them to do their job. So I don't know where I heard this, but so software amplifies the intent. It's not really so. You really need to have the intent and then the motivation for people to kind of make a change, and then software can help them to make it faster in a way. Right. So if a state does not have that kind of motivation, people who are not there are no champions to kind of do that change, and software will really not work.
Exactly.
Yeah, that
Software can just augment and ease the work, but there should be someone backing it, like strong centers enforcing that people to use it. Shifting people from paper to system is hard.
Yes. One thing I really liked about this is it's done at district level. The district machinery is kind of using it, and then if another district want to use it, they can actually, like you said, they can deploy it, and then you or the state, that district can actually provide support for them deploying it, but they have to kind of take ownership and actually run it on their own. So I feel like that's how I feel that's a good way to kind of look at open source. Right? You can run it on your own, and you can make your own customizations, because each district may actually have slightly different flows, etc. So they should be able to customize it for their own need rather than pushing one from top down. So it really looks like really wonderful, wonderful experience to kind of look at this project.
Thank you.
You are now unmuted.
Hey guys, this is Shabam. So Aprup has already talked. I'm from India Vaccine as well. So I'm just I'm just running operations there. Aprup is handling the tech side. Okay, that's me.
With the time, I think I want to kind of just have a ask for some kind of feedback about how is it being kind of. I think most of you have been attending session regularly. Like, how is it going, and what can be changed, or what's be improved, etc. If you have any suggestions, I think let us know. Great. I don't think we have any inputs. I think we just move on to the next session. Vishal, if you have anything else in mind.
Yeah, all right. Can you guys hear me and see the screen share? All right, let's go. So hey, I'm Valmik. You can find me on all the social medias, by which I mean just GitHub. It's a social media platform. I have a lot of followers. What do? I do a lot of I wear a lot of hats at Parsimony. Parsimony is ERP for online marketplaces, and I do a bunch of things there. But apart from that, I do a lot of self-hosting. I like to set up a lot of things like alternatives to normal services that you use, cloud services, SaaS services that you use. I make a lot of automations and like to tinker a lot around with whatever I have, and I can make do with. And just on that last point. So the idea of this talk was kind of like it's not a tutorial. First of all, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to take everyone through like a step-by-step process of setting up DIY home automation, because there's plenty of tutorials out there, and there's plenty of great resources out there. The objective for this was to kind of show people an entry point of how can you begin with home automation, and specifically in the Indian ecosystem. Because what happens often is that you have like a lot of hardware and stuff that is kind of easily available in, say, the Western countries, but not easily available here. And like a lot of software kind of tends to have integrations with that and not. So I'll talk more about that. Anyways, so the idea is I'm just going to do an overview of like home automation and home assistant. I'm going to then demo through like a fresh home assistant system and just show you how easy it is to set it up. And then I'm just going to take you guys through my setup. And then we do a Q&A. And hopefully you have a lot of questions about like how maybe you have some ideas on how to do things, or you might be curious about how I set up something. Anyway, why DIY home automation? I don't think I need to convince you guys on home automation itself. I mean, whilst you guys are here, right? And we're all techies, so yeah. It's cheaper than enterprise systems. You have systems that essentially are built for the entire house, heck, like complete massive, airports and whatnot. But those are incredibly expensive, lakhs and lakhs. So the idea is, you take consumer hardware and you kind of bring all of it into one place. Because right now you buy, like, say, a Philips bulb, a Xiaomi, something else, and a different, I don't know, Cisca, and like something by Cisca, and they're all fragmented, they're all separate, they have their own app, they have their own way of doing things, and none of them talk to each other. So the idea is you combine all of them in one place. You have complete control of the data, and because everything's local, because it's running on your network, when something breaks on Amazon, your vacuum cleaner doesn't stop working. So, and along with that, every perk of being self-hosted is also something that you get, because you get the privacy, you get the security, and well, end of the day, it's fun. It's just fun to do. Why home assistant? So home assistant is a platform to be able to do automation. And there's a lot of other alternatives as well in the open source space. OpenHab is there. In the non-open source, you have IFTTT, but it's pretty limited. So home assistant's incredibly active, has some surprisingly good documentation, open source projects, and has a great community, has a great discourse forum where people share a lot of things that they have made and
You are now muted.
help solve other people's problems. Has a lot of integrations, great dashboard building tools. They are privacy centric. Being open source and privacy centric, unfortunately, are not always hand in hand, but these folks are. And it's not black boxed in the sense that you have to search for some log in the corner of your file system to look for what's actually happening and what's going on. And it's a great entry point if you want to start self-hosting. I'll get to that in a bit, but it's just and it runs on any old hardware. I run it on an ancient laptop, no problem at all. And of course, it's free and open source. Right. So I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to hop directly to how to just get started. So you have the website. You can just go to the installation page, and one small thing I want to kind of make a distinction is that they have two flavors of home assistant. When you have the home assistant operating system, which is a fully set up system, which has more than just home assistant, it has a whole supervisor which makes sure that services are up and also allows you to install new things. I'll show that to you in a bit. Alternatively, you have just the container, which is just a Docker image that you can spin up. If you already have a home server that you just want to make Home Assistant part of. So you can just do that and not have any of this. Because this can be a bit opinionated and have things that you might not be. One of the lovely things about this is that you can install this on practically anything. And you don't need to splurge on a new Raspberry Pi if you just want to try this out. So you can just spin this up on a VM on a Windows machine, no problem. Yeah. And so what I've done for the demo is I've just set up a virtual machine on my this thing, and it's pretty straightforward to set up. And I'm not going to take us through the setup process because it's just filling out like these simple forms. Because all of that gets handled by itself. The moment you spin up the virtual machine or the Raspberry Pi, the flow is the same. All right. So I'm going to hop directly into here. This is what comes up. This is what you start with. And the page here is essentially called the Lovelace dashboard based on Art of Lovelace. And I'm going to actually first show you the supervisor. And this is the part that comes with Home Assistant OS and not the container itself. And this essentially allows you to install other applications through just simple clicks. Like it's that straightforward. And essentially what's happening in the background is it's spinning up containers out of Docker images. And it's essentially its own tiny container orchestration almost, and it does all the management for you. You don't need to worry about anything. And it has its own backup system, and you have a place where you can check all of your logs. So going with Home Assistant OS is what I'd recommend for anybody who would want to start with Home Assistant or even just self-hosting. They're not used to maybe ops stuff. Maybe they're not, or they don't want to deal with it. They're like, you know what, I do enough of this at work. I just want something that works. All right, so I'm actually just going to start with configuring something. So I have so I'm going to ignore this one up. So it will automatically discover things that are in your network that it knows how to add, but we're not going to get to this right now. I'm currently going to add a bulb I have in my hall, and the brand is Relight. This integration already exists in Home Assistant. I haven't had to do anything. And all I need to do is add the IP address. Now, there is a caveat with any device you want to integrate with, not just Home Assistant, but really any platform, is that device needs to be on your network first. So that will have to happen through the vendor's app, whatever it is, right? But once it's configured and added, you can then just throw away the app. That's fine. So right now I'm just going to add this. So I have that. I know that this guy is at this IP address. I'm just going to submit. Let's finish it. And what I'm going to do quickly. There we go. Can you guys see the camera? There we go. You guys see a little lamp?
You are now unmuted.
Awesome. So yeah, I thought I would have a visual element to this. So I've added this. All I'm going to do is go here and now I can control this. And again, this is stock. I haven't modified anything. I can change any of this. And if I go to the main dashboard, it will now show up here as well. So the dashboard is automatically generated, but you can completely take over it and customize it as well. So you have this guy, you can set whatever you want. You have some effects. Right now, I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to actually integrate one more thing. I'm going to actually add Kodi. Kodi is a media player. It connects to my TV, so I can then just play stuff on it. So I'm just going to integrate that as well. And in fact, right, and we'll see it shows up right here. It seems there was something already playing on it, so I'm just going to stop there. There. So from here, you can essentially browse your entire library. Think of it as a local Plex coding. So what I want to do actually is that I want to create an automation. and you can do that from configuration and automation right here. And what I'm going to do is, if I'm watching something on my TV, I just want the light to be off, right? So I'm just going to create one. Low wallet, lights. And I'm going to say this guy is, like, right. And I'm going to say, in that case, no, this guy. Save. And I'm actually going to turn the light on just to demonstrate. And I'm just going to pick something from here. So, just going to play this. It's a good movie. Give it a few seconds. Hopefully, the course of the demo. There. I cleared it, and now with the bulb just goes, right? And if I wanted to create an automation to do the opposite, to like if I pause, turn on the light, I would just have to go through the same process to then add that automation to the opposite. It's that easy. Along with that, I just want to show one thing. You can create scenes, and scenes are essentially like a certain state. Just say you have like 4 different bulbs in your hall that you want to kind of make them work at the same time. So like maybe you have a certain like light setup you want when you're watching something. So we'll call it movie time, and I'll add a device, and whatever the current state of this thing is, it essentially gets stored. So if I were to trigger the scene, which shows up here, it will essentially, it was stored as nothing. So it's just going to stay there. So if I turn this on and activate this, it'll get triggered. And in a situation where you have like more than one device, you can actually orchestrate like everything. You want to turn on the AC, turn off the bulbs, turn on the speaker system, all by turning on your media player. You can do that. And this is just scratching the surface of what you can do with Home Assistant, because I have barely like shown you a few things, but we have these 2 different integrations that are completely like separate. Light right here as its own app that works by itself, and normally you wouldn't be able to integrate these, but you can, right? So that's just a very short demonstration on how you can just start up from scratch, add a few things. Now obviously I have an advantage here of like already having things that I've already figured out to get to work, but it's honestly not like a significant amount of effort once you understand how the thing works. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to, and if I had the time, I would just go through my entire setup, but that would take me hours. So I'm going to just point out a few like interesting things, that some of my favorite integrations that I have set up. And everything here that I'm showing is I've documented it. So I'm going to share the link for this whole thing on the chat, and you can have a look at everything that I've integrated and how it works. And if there's anything missing, you can just ping me, and I'd be happy to add it. So one of my favorite things is not a smart TV. It's a 10-year-old LED TV, but it works with Home Assistant using a Wi-Fi controlled IR blaster. It's great. I have details on, as I said, I have details on the thing, but I can essentially control the TV using this, and you can see how Bodhish right here. I have a PlayStation which allows me to select what game I want to play, and it just turns it on, and everything gets set up perfectly. I have weather. I'm not sure why I have weather. I'm in Mumbai. It's basically the same every day. Bedroom. So yeah, I've broken this down into every tab is essentially a room almost. The AC, again, not a smart AC. I've essentially configured it to work with the IR blaster, and it's lovely. The other 3, just some data that I pull from like a air purifier I have in my room. It just has the sensor data that I just pull it here and drop it here. For the workshop, I have a few buttons, and these buttons actually trigger things on my PC. So there's a whole integration to that as well. It's great. And this one actually connects to my 3D printer. And I have a little video feed right here to be able to see what's going on as well. And this one is for just, it's like a monitoring place. I can see what's going on with my system, my uptime, and so on and so forth. And the last part, this is actually just like a lab section that I have to just try out things. And I'm actually working on trying to figure out presence detection without like PIR sensors. So like using Bluetooth, like BLE sensing, because I have Raspberry Pis everywhere. I want to try to figure out if the system can figure out what room I'm in, depending on using my phone or my MI band, something like that. And I'm still tinkering with that. If I get it to work, I'll probably maybe write a blog or something. And that's it. That's kind of the demo. Oh wait, actually, I missed one thing out. So I actually don't use the automations in Home Assistant. I use a separate software called Red. Again, open source, integrates with Home Assistant, and allows me to create like these visual-based, like low code. That's what they say. Not always, but it's just easy to quickly iterate on new things, new ideas, and whatnot using this. But there's a lot of other approaches to writing your own automation outside of home automation, including Python programming. And of course, Home Assistant has APIs, and so you can do your imagination is the limit, really. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm sure I must have missed out a few things. Oh yeah, there we go. So some tips related to getting hardware, because that's one of the challenges of starting any home automation is what hardware do I pick up, especially because some of the stuff that's easily integratable is really expensive. Like a while back when Philips came out with its Hue bulbs, those are really expensive, and they're still expensive. Now you have a lot of options, like cheaper stuff that's available, like local vendors and stuff, but you won't find those integrations on the system. But there's a few workarounds, because you first of all you want to see if Home Assistant has the integration for the thing that you're purchasing. Sometimes you might have a custom integration or like a workaround. You can build your own open source software, make your own this thing, figure out the API and make your own. You can build your own hardware if you wanted to, using open source firmware, and you can just essentially then integrate that into Home Assistant. And one of the things I've noticed is that a lot of these local vendors like Cisco, I think there's also Smart Life, I think they're called, and I can share a list of vendors, but a lot of them are just rebranded Tuya hardware. Tuya is this company that essentially creates smart devices, and you notice that a lot of these bulbs look the same, a lot of these smart switches look the same. It's because they're made by the same folks, and it's just rebranded. And they all have their own app, but it all works with Tuya. So if you get the Tuya app on your phone, that thing will just work, and then you can integrate Tuya with Home Assistant. And that's what I've done for some of the devices at my place, where I have like a Cisco bulb and I have like a locally, I don't remember the brand name, but essentially they work with Tuya, and which means they work with Home Assistant, right? Yeah, specific hardware can also be flashed with the open source software. So, because a lot of smart devices are based off the ESP8266 chip, which is like a very commonly found chip for low energy, low bandwidth uses essentially. So you can just flash the whole thing with a completely open source software if you want to. But yeah, that all gets into more advanced things. But like with enough research and like figuring out things, you can absolutely like build out a home automation system on the cheap. And my setup took me like over a year or so, because I've added things little by little. And I'm not going around spending like a significant amount of money on like hardware that fancy hardware. Like it's all jugaad, right? So yeah, I think that's it. I think I'm done rambling. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
You are now unmuted.
To the
Hello.
Yeah.
Hey, great, very interesting session. I want to kind of understand. Let's say someone who's starting new, right? I mean, where would you suggest to start?
Oh, actually, yeah, that's a point I should have covered. So, I actually, my favorite thing is to normally take dumb devices, quote unquote dumb devices, and make them smart. So, like everybody has a TV and an AC, right? So that's a great place to start by just getting an IR blaster. Again, details in my configuration page, but you have like this fairly cheap Broadlink. Again, no affiliations even, but you get this fairly cheap Broadlink IR blaster that you can integrate, and essentially you can program it to do whatever you want, right? So turning on the TV, turning off the TV, uh, controlling your AC, all of that without actually needing the remote, connecting it to
You
your
are now
Google Home
muted.
if you have it, or Alexa if you have it. All of that is doable. So I would say, like, starting with a IR blaster is great because allows you to take like whatever you have at home already, and with a small investment you can do a bunch of automation. It's just that.
Yeah. So, for example, you want to control lights or something, right? Do you need to kind of get different kinds of lights and etc.
So
Or
yeah, so for lights you have two different approaches. One thing you can do is you can get smart bulbs, right? Smart lights that have
yeah,
like they're Wi-Fi enabled, or you get you essentially get Wi-Fi switches, right? So instead
okay,
of the bulb being smart, you basically put a Wi-Fi switch between your the in the your electrical setup, right? So now you can then trigger that thing to turn it on and off easily. So a lot of places, obviously, you don't want to tear out a lot of the lighting, so you can just like open up your wall socket and replace that small switch. I can actually link you to something that you could use. So there's a brand called Sonoff, and they make
okay.
these cheap Wi-Fi switches, and you can essentially place them in the middle of your. Uh, Again, no affiliation. I'm just sharing links. Just put them in the center of your setup, and then you can integrate that with Home Assistant, and that will work just fine for you.
Great. I mean, this is quite interesting because, in fact, so when I was, so I started actually experimenting with teaching programming, etc., to kids around last September or something. And the two things that we did, one is creative coding, other is actually hardware. So
Yeah.
actually, I made actually kids try to use smaller sensors and even the uh, I forgot the name. The switches you can so make actually write a program to actually turn actually a bulb on and off. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
so you actually use a microbit and actually they send a signal and then actually all of actually light or small fan actually gets turned on and all that. It's really kind of fun and kids really enjoy doing
It
that.
is.
And
Yeah.
I mean, extending it to home automation is something would be really wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, there is a certain like level of enjoyment you get from just pressing a button and like a fan turns on. Like there's a certain like level of like monkey brain
Yeah,
just being like, yeah, this is cool, this is great, and of course all the convenience and the you can really stretch out your laziness when you're in bed and you don't want to move at all. You just want the
yeah,
house to work around you. It's great.
yeah, really nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
You are now unmuted.
Hey everyone, am I audible?
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Uh, Vishal, am I supposed to be talking about first comment right now? Okay, okay. All right. Hey everyone, great to see you all here. We are going to be restarting our activities for First Comet, which is a contributor experience sharing event that we have been running for the past 2 months. Uh, for the first episode or first uh, show, we had Gautam Veermachanini from Grafana, and the second one we had UV, who's also present here right now. So the next iteration or the next episode, we are going to be having with us uh, Nabarun Pal, who was also recently serving as the Kubernetes 1.21 release lead. And you can check out our website here, fossunited.org slash first commit. Uh, are there any opinions or suggestions regarding the format of the event, if anyone has been participating in them till now?
Yeah, I think it's really wonderful. I mean, I've quite enjoyed both the sessions. Looking forward to have more and more sessions like this. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, so that's that underscore instead of hyphen. Yeah. Also, if anyone is interested in sharing about their project, open source project, and getting some new contributors onboarded for the project, we are open to hosting you for our office hour sessions, which are basically informal meetings that we have every second and fourth Tuesday of a month. So we are planning to have one next on 11th, that is coming Tuesday, where we will be having a presentation of a project, a focus project. For example, if we are going to be presenting I think the last office hour session, we had Mon.school, that is live code being presented by with Anand. And so it's a great opportunity if you're interested in getting some new contributors onboarded and like sharing about your projects. So do join us for that as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.